Hi, my name is Colleen. I was born in Sean Ross Abbey in Ross Cray, Tipperary in 1965. I would have been there for 2.5 years before I was sent over to America to be adopted by one of the nuns at Sean Ross, who was in charge of the adoptions. And she sent me to her niece in the States. And they're about 2.5, 3 years old. I was actually adopted by the family in American Chicago, and that's where I lived for most of my life. The nun that
Did you
was
say?
portrayed, yeah, the nun that was portrayed in the movie, Sister Hildegard. So she was the one who actually sent the kid, was a part of the adoption process, I guess, or sending the babies or selling the babies or whatever. She sent me to her niece in the States. So my adopted mom didn't think she could have children, so she wanted to adopt a baby from Ireland because she was also born in Ireland. Obviously, she was Irish. She was born in Dublin, so she married and moved to Chicago, and then later in life decided she wanted to have a child, and because she was diabetic, didn't think she could, and then adopted me, or must have been. I still don't know the whole story, but what I was told was she just was talking to Sister Hildegard, as that was her aunt, and mentioned that she wanted to adopt a baby from, or a child from, Sean Ross. But then I wasn't adopted till, well, 2.5 years old. I left Sean Ross. So I think it was in 1967. And then in 1968, the adoption actually went through in the States. But I don't know, there's like a 6-month gap of where I was, or if I was even in the what do you call it? The organization was Charities of Sister, or Sisters of Charity, I believe. And in Chicago, there was also one, but I don't know if I was part of that. Like I didn't go straight to my adopted parents' house, or if I was in another institution there. That nobody can tell me. So there's about a 6-month gap there. Remember, probably around age 4, being with my adopted parents, and my adopted my adopted mom was well, I didn't know this till later in life, but she was unmedicated schizophrenic, so she was mentally ill. So there was a lot of physical abuse, and I remember a lot of physical abuse from probably age 4 on. At age 5, I believe that's when she told me I was adopted, and I was adopted from Ireland because of her mental state and being very abusive physically and verbally. She used to always tell me she was going to send me back to the orphanage in Ireland. So that's kind of how I was told that I was adopted. It was kind of through being a bully or just abuse, verbal abuse. And I remember she used to either, I don't know if she was talking to Sister Hildegard on the phone or she was pretending, but when she would want to threaten me with sending me back, she would be on the phone saying, she wanted to send me back to Sean Ross. So that's how I found out I was adopted. Did a testimony to the investigation, I can't think of the phrase, I'm sorry. Anyway, the investigation committee, I was part of that. And they did that whole 600-page report and everything like that, that people are kind of now, they're saying that they didn't use the right testimony or blah, blah, blah. Well, they put in, I read most of it, or at least my section in the report, and they put in all the good adoption stories to the States, but they never put in like my testimony or anything. They didn't use it. So any bad, like yourself, or things where people were adopted and they went through, not a nice time, they didn't use that. They just used the happy stories. So that was my issue with the report, the Commission of Investigation. That's what I was thinking. I was here probably 1 week into coming back home to Ireland in 2018. And I had, before I came to Ireland, I had talked to the commission through email and we set up the date. So I went in there, I think it was November 5th. And it was very, well, again, I'm doing all this by myself. I came back to Ireland by myself, and really no family. I didn't even hook up with my cousin on the adopted side till probably a good 4 weeks, 5 weeks back home in Ireland. And but when I went to the commission, it was very, there was the judge, a woman judge, and then I believe a professor and a few other women. And it was, there was no like empathy or anything. It was just, they just asked questions. They made you swear on a Bible, which I just thought was, I mean, who would want to, make up stories about their own life kind of thing, I felt like they just, like I was just a number or something, like not really a person telling the story. And not that I was looking for empathy, but I'm just telling them this, how, and I'd end up in hospital, and that it wasn't a good adoption story, and yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was hard. It was hard. It was emotional. I felt like I wasn't being validated, and I was trying to prove something, and I didn't feel right about it, but it was something that had to be done. And again, then when the report came out, none of this was put into the report, or if it was put into, I think they recorded me. And that's the recordings that they're saying are missing now, the voice recordings. So I had my adopted mom 2.5 years later had a child of her own. So that would have been my adopted sister, their natural child. So we were 2.5 years apart. My dad, he knew about the abuse that was going on. And now the abuse was only to me. My sister's name was Myra. She never was beat or, I was made stand up and eat my meals. I mean, what they call a cutting board that you pull out, I was made stand there, and whether it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and my back toward the family. So that's kind of not only like I said, the physical and the emotional. And my dad knew all this, but he never did anything. He was afraid of my mom. I think because of the mental condition going on, he was afraid. And he was a big man, and she was little. But boy, she was very, very, just, yeah, people were afraid of her, the temper and everything. And he didn't do anything. He would just leave. He would go fishing, and she would wake me up sometimes at 2, 3 in the morning, and just whatever the mental illness was going on, she would make me stand in the kitchen, and she would just yell and scream. And, he'd get up and tell her to stop, but that was it. And even when she was beating me, he didn't do anything. So, and even the school, I'd come sometimes in the morning, bleeding from the head, like she had hit me or pushed me against the wall. And they knew, but they didn't do anything. And I ran away from home for years. I lived in neighbors' bushes in the cold of winter, sometimes just to get away from my mom. And, the police would bring me back, and then I'd be on probation for running away from home, but I was running away really from a bad situation. So no, there was no support. I left home probably at 16 and that was it. Dropped out of school, and pretty much was like emancipated. And that was it. I never went back. I lived in some group homes. I was in a detention home for 1 month because of violating probation for running away from home, because I'd run away again. And yeah, I just like the system, probably here in Ireland or any other country. I fell through the cracks. I doubt that would happen today. I think it's changed, but back then, that would have been in the early 70s. Yeah, there was no support. That was their biological child. And later in life, now I was gone from the home, like I said, around between 16 and 17, like gone, like I never looked back. I did talk to my family a few times, my parents on the phone when I was living in Wisconsin, because I would have went to Wisconsin at age 17, and throughout the years. But my sister ended up being schizophrenic as well. So she got that, it is hereditary. And so she was schizophrenic, but still living in the house. I know she graduated from high school. Again, I had really not much contact with them. And then when I was in Wisconsin, I was contacted by, I believe it was it would be like the Red Cross, and they were trying to find me because they knew that my sister had a sibling, that I was around somewhere, and they were taking my sister out of the home because she went unmedicated with schizophrenia, because my mom, never being schizophrenic herself, never accepted it, so never got the help for her. So basically the state stepped in, took her. I became her guardian for about a year and a half, and she got her into a nursing home. I tried to get her into a group home, but she had paranoid schizophrenia. So that's the worst schizophrenia to have. And she would go into catatonic states. And so yeah, it was hard. My adoptive parents were very mad because they had guardianship. Then the state stepped in, then I took over guardianship, then I gave guardianship back to the state rather, to them. So, not that I really cared about that, because I had nothing to do with my parents at that point. But yeah, she ended up, like I said, in a nursing home, and for about 26 years, and she died. I buried her 4 years ago, right before, and then I came to Ireland. So she died at age 50 of ovarian cancer in the nursing home. Yes, I believe that one of my things that, and I still today will never be able to figure out, with mental illness, I wouldn't have thought there would have been a discrimination. It would just be, if you're being abusive to one, you'd be abusive just because you're mentally ill. But that wasn't the case with me. It was anything that my sister, if she did something bad, no matter, even if she told that it was me, I was to blame. Like my mom would say, Colleen did it, not my sister, even though my sister had done something. So I was always probably, the word would be like a scapegoat. And I remember there was a time, this is just one incident, but my sister had a scratch on her face. And, as kids do, they fall or they scratch themselves. And because of my mom's illness with schizophrenia, she actually talked my sister into saying that I had done it, that I had taken a Bible school pin and I had scraped my sister in the face. So my sister told my mom this after my mom had basically told her that that's what happened. So then my mom proceeded to get a Bible pin, and she put me up on the bed and scraped the inside of my thighs with it. And that was just, like I said, that was one incident. But whenever there would be anything, she would convince my sister that I had done it, and then I would be punished for it. So this went on, like I said, just years and years, and the hitting and the beating. And I got hit with probably have about many stitches in my head from just being knocked against the wall, or a shoe thrown at me, and stitches. And, obviously I couldn't tell people at the hospital what happened, because then it would be worse when I'd go home. So it was just, I fell or something that kids do. When I was younger, and again, when she used to tell me that she was going to send me back to the orphanage, and she would either be calling Sister Hildegard or pretending, another verbal thing that she would use against me was, you're going to end up like your mother. Now, my mother was raped. So, yeah, it was, and I don't know if she knew that, or I don't know. This was just things that she would tell me out of anger and just to use as a weapon, and it's just things that, like I said, this all happened, probably started at age 5. I remember just every year, it just, people ask me, was there any happy times? Now, there was times with other relatives that I would go see and be around, but nothing with my mom and dad. I don't remember any happy times, because I was always the one. Even when we would go on family trips, my mom would, for some reason, just something would come in her head, and she'd turn around, even in the car, and just start hitting me. It would just come out of the blue. I could never. And another reason why I dropped out of school, because I missed so much school. I wouldn't go to school because to go home, I never knew what kind of mood she would be in. So I would just stay out all day, and, either not go home and stay in somebody's bushes at night, or a friend's basement or something. But it was just to avoid, because, like I said, the verbal was just as bad as the physical abuse. For many years after I left home, Even when I stepped in to intervene with getting my sister in a nursing home, I always loved Ireland because I was brought up Irish. So Irish dancing I did, and Irish music was playing, and my aunts and uncles played, instruments and everything. So Irish was very to obviously come back to Ireland. I mean, even when I was in my teens or early 20s, that was always my dream. And then knowing that I didn't really have a good relationship with my mom, I always wanted to meet my birth mom. So knowing Sister Hildegard, and I had conversations with her over the years. Just she kind of knew that I had what kind of child life I had, because her brother, which would have been my grandfather, would come over from Ireland to the States and would see his children, my adopted mom, so his daughter. And he knew that there was stuff going on. He knew that there was some abuse going on. So Sister Hildegard didn't know. But I had talked to her about my wanting to meet. A lot of it's vague, but I remember her saying that she remembered my mom, and she remembered that my mom's sisters, so my aunts, would come to visit my mom at Sean Ross. And she told me where my one aunt lived in Tipperary, in a little town called Kilfeacle. So she actually reached out to my aunt, my mom's sister in Tipperary, and mentioned that I wanted to know more. And I started corresponding with my aunt in Tipperary through letters over the years, probably for about 2 years, just basically information of where my mom, or what she was doing now, which she had a family and had kids and had married, and just back and forth letters like that, and kind of where I was in my life. And then through Barnardos in Ireland, they actually set up the meeting for me to come over in 1999 to meet my birth mom and my aunt and my birth mom's husband. And that was all done through Barnardos. So they actually set up a meeting and at Christ Church. And my mom and her husband and my aunt came down on a train because they didn't want me to go to the country where they were living because I looked too much like my mom. And then, being a secret, the story, there would have been questions and everything. So, it was done very much in secrecy, but I didn't really, to me, it didn't matter because I didn't know any of them. You know what I mean? I was just going to meet my birth mom, and Bernardo's was great. The woman who unfortunately passed away 6 weeks ago from Bernardo's, really sudden. Crazy. I went and saw her through a documentary that has not yet come out, but I just finished with a film crew, and I'll let you know more about that. But the woman who got this all together, I met 23 years later, and she was part of this documentary. And COVID, she was only, I think, 60 years old. She had COVID symptoms, went into the hospital, and had a massive heart attack. So, I mean, it's like, I came full circle, even meeting her again, and then now she's gone too. So it's like the story for me is just, it's unraveled in so many different ways, but a lot of loss, from my mom to my birth sister to even this woman who got us together, at Christ Church and everything. And she was great because she was a mediator, and I didn't know the questions to ask, and they came in, and my mom was very traumatized. She was, I think, on tranquilizers. She really didn't talk much. And the woman, Christine, asked the questions and everything that, like what happened. And what I was told was that my birth mom was raped by a man who was in the military over visiting his ill mom in Ireland. And the rape occurred, and he was brought up on charges. I, to this day, have not tried to, find out anything because I don't know if that's something I want to know about or learn, or, everything. It's another avenue I might check into, but that's the story I was told, was she was raped at 15, had me at 16. Um, she never told the kids about me because she did not want to relive the whole story. And I know one of the things, she really didn't say too much to me, but the one thing she said to me that stuck to me was, worse than the rape was how the nuns had treated her. So basically, as you've seen, probably, it was shame. It was her fault, even though it wasn't her fault. She was led to believe that. And yeah, she was traumatized, and she did not want to tell the kids. She said, I'd rather die than tell the children. So it was a lot of going back and forth of, like I said, I did let her know that I did not grow up in a happy home. Not to make her feel bad, but it was part of the story, and she had thought that I was still in Ireland. She had no idea where I was. She had a child 11 years after she left Sean Ross. She went to England. That's where she met her husband.
Right.
And I think she became a nurse, but she had one died, and then four today. When I didn't know. I mean, I heard that through kind of like the grapevine, but when I watched the funeral of my mom's husband, they mentioned the baby that died. So it was the four kids, and then the baby. Bernardo's, who set up the meeting of us meeting, we met at Christ Church in Dublin, and it was very formal. It was in a little room, and it was formal. I didn't know what, like I said, I did all this, even in 99, I did it by myself. So, I mean, I did have a therapist in the States that kind of was there for me as far as if I needed something for support, because again, I was over in Ireland, and it was a big thing to meet my birth mom. And she was very traumatized. She really didn't talk too much. Again, it was more questions and answers. I was scared. I mean, I guess I thought it was going to be more of a hugs and happy kind of reunion. And it wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I expected, or probably, the fantasy that I had. And so a lot of questions and answers. Her sister, my aunt, did a lot of talking just about, where they lived, and that kind of thing. But it wasn't it was so formal that it wasn't like a daughter meeting her mom, that, like I said, that I would have expected. And the only good thing that I would say came out of it was we took it after leaving the meeting, which was probably only about an hour long. I mean, it literally was just a meeting. And but they did want to go to lunch. So without the woman from Bernardo's, we did go have lunch. And the husband had kind of said to me on the side that he said, I won't go against her wishes, my wife's wishes, about telling the children. But he said, if anything ever happened, he would tell the kids. And then, a little bit of chit chat. I don't remember. Like I said, I probably, even though I wasn't tranquilized, I was pretty numb. I was pretty much in a trance, because these were people I didn't know, and nobody was there to kind of, even at lunch, to ask the questions or anything. So it was awkward. But still, it was in a different environment. It was very awkward as far as it was awkward in the Christ Church, because it was so formal. But then we went to lunch, and it was awkward there as well, because there wasn't anybody to kind of ask the questions. And my mom was still very, very traumatized and kind of numb. And then her husband kind of had talked to me on the side and said he would never go against her wishes, which was to never tell the children about me. And he said, but if something ever happened to her, that he would tell the kids about me, and see if they wanted a relationship with me. And then basically having some lunch and just small chat. I honestly don't remember, because I was kind of numb myself. And again, it was in 1999. But the one thing I remember at the end, when we did part ways was she said to me, maybe someday. And that was it. That was the end. And I never spoke to her again. She went back home, and it was so hard for her that she just decided she couldn't have any more communication. And my aunt had basically got in touch with Bernardo's and told them for me not to contact my aunt anymore through letters, that she was going to stick, she was going to respect my mom's wishes. And so Bernardo's got in touch with me and told me that, there would be no more communication between us. And then probably 11 years later, still myself still being in the state, I got an email from Bernardo's to give them a call. They had news, and I called the woman, and she told me that my mom had passed away, but that her husband had told the children about me, and that they would be in contact. So, then dealing with the death of her, and I believe it was probably maybe 6 months later, I received a letter from the next oldest. So I would be the oldest, and the next oldest daughter, my sister, wrote me and just introduced herself, and sent me pictures of the rest of the siblings. And yeah, I mean, it was just, again, it was a correspondence through letters. And then the other sister, the youngest, she would be the youngest sister, she wrote me, and we corresponded back and forth. And then I did meet a brother in the States who lives in Florida. And I did meet him for a while, but that didn't go well. That didn't go well. So it was not a good meeting. And yeah, then I started doing some interviews to tell my story, because I believe the mother baby thing got really big in Ireland. So, and a lot of the babies were sent to the States. And one of the newspapers, the Chicago Tribune, reached out, and I was part of a documentary or a news article, along with 4 others that were adopted to the States. So my story started coming out, and then the siblings here in Ireland started seeing the stories, and they basically just said that I was disrespecting the privacy of our mom, who was gone, and the privacy of all of them, the whole family. And so they wanted nothing to do with me, and basically, called me every name in the book. And that was it. I mean, they blocked me from everything, threatened to sue any newspaper that made any, more stories about them. So, again, it was my story, and my mom, I thought, and I still to this day and will always feel that I was telling my story, but I was also trying to have it, protect my mom, that it wasn't her fault. And she always felt it was her fault. And that's why I couldn't be a part of their life or the kids' life, or the story. She couldn't tell them because it was a secrecy, and she felt shame, and she was, by the nuns had told her it was her fault, even though it wasn't. She was violated. So sure, I was shown a lot of kindness through other people and even relatives, but I don't think even the relatives, I don't think they realized or didn't know. I mean, it's not like I ran to the relatives and said I was getting, I was made eat my meal standing up or anything like that, or some of the incidents that happened. I mean, as I was a secret, I also kept what was happening to me a secret, so you learn that, I guess. And the abuse and everything. So I didn't probably share as much, and I probably could have maybe received more empathy, but they didn't. The system didn't help me. I was like, I'd run away and I was sent back home. So and again, even today, and I'm not trying to sound like a victim or anything, but I've done all the healing, the surviving all by myself. And, and definitely telling my story here in Ireland and being back here, and the amazing people that have been part of this story have shown me a lot of empathy. But that's not even what I'm looking for to tell my story. It's just, I'm telling it because, like, others that have gone through either the same thing or have felt, that, they weren't validated. And the fact that the siblings want nothing to do with me because I told my story still makes me not feel validated in what happened. And maybe I never will, but I have healed. And a lot of the healing has been telling the story, and even them saying, no, we don't want anything to do with you. I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to be one of these that'll, go to show up to things or just show up to where they work or anything like that. I would never do that. I respect them enough, and I even understand how they feel, but I don't think they've ever understood how I feel. It's just the fact that I did what made them feel uncomfortable, or telling my story, but they've never seen that it's affected me. And now today I think I'm better because of it. So you think that they'd want to, or I felt that I would have wanted them to be, supportive, or, some kind of way to say that I got through it and I didn't, jump off a building or something, so. As I said before, I was talking about, I grew up Irish, and was very proud to be Irish. And it was always my dream to come home. And when I buried my sister, I guess 4 years ago, there was nobody left in my adopted family. I mean, I didn't have a real relation. I had a very close relationship with my sister growing up. We were dressed alike and everything. And, we were sisters. We would do things, ride bikes and everything like that. But then when she became ill, and I still, all the way up, I'd still go see her in the nursing home and everything. But when I buried her, that was the last of the adopted kind of family, other than relatives and everything like that, cousins and stuff that, as you get older, you don't really see too much. So it was my dream to come home. And that was when I decided I was going to do it. And it wasn't that I was coming home to have a relationship with the siblings, because they had pretty much kind of told me, although I still, and not anymore, I would say not today, I don't have any fantasy that they will come around. But I did before I came home to Ireland. I definitely thought, yeah, when I get there and they know that I'm in Ireland versus being in the States, that it would be easier to possibly meet. And that fantasy, yeah, that went on for quite some time. And until more stories started coming out, that I was telling to newspapers and documentaries. And because that there was a connection with the fact of the nun who was portrayed in the movie Philomena had sent me to her niece, the story was more hit home, or for me, there was a connection. So yeah, I just, like I said, I just wanted to get on a plane, and I did it by myself at age basically 50 years later. So I left Ireland, or would have been adopted at Ireland at 3, and I came back when I was 50 years old. 53, sorry, 53. And telling my story to newspapers and everything, just, it brought more people around to say that they had gone through either similar things, or just validated my feelings more, validated my story, validated that I wasn't alone, even though I was doing it alone, because that's kind of how I survived growing up, was doing it by myself. And then just the people, the support. There was a lot of people that when I ended up in emergency accommodation, and I had nothing, and they would come over and just bring me Christmas presents and just send me things. And it was amazing. It was like, they were my family. Even though my family didn't want nothing to do with me, they kind of became my family. So the support was amazing here in Ireland, and which I always felt, because Irish people, as myself, were very strong, but very to help each other. And that's what I found when I came back home. Definitely. I mean, I was a part of a documentary by Al Jazeera. I'm sure you've heard of them, but they did a documentary with me going to Sean Ross. Now, I've been to Sean Ross twice, where I was born. I went for a reunion. They have a commemorative reunion every year, and I went to the graves and actually saw Sister Hildegard's grave, the nun. And then through the documentary, they had me walk up the steps and actually release doves and pigeons as kind of a sign of freedom. Or it was very neat. I mean, it was just. No, I've not gone into the house. I was supposed to go where they had some kind of a thing last weekend to go into the house. I have not been in, but because of my mom's husband dying and watching the funeral, I didn't want to. I just felt it was too hard. It was too hard for me to kind of deal. I was already dealing with those emotions, and then to go in. Um, but definitely going back and seeing where I was born. I've been to my mom's grave. I put flowers on. The kids don't know. I didn't announce it or anything like that because, again, I'm trying to respect what they want. So, I mean, all of it, just, I guess, all of the experiences, the going through the emotions, the anger, although I don't have a lot of anger anymore. It's just more sadness. But even that, even through the sadness, I've healed and become stronger. And again, the support of the people and just, um, the validation has probably been the healing part.